Greetings, fellow songwriter, and welcome back to Song Structure 101. I'm your host, Ethan, aka the Ghost Mall, and in the previous video, the first in this series, we covered the most basic puzzle pieces when assembling a solid song structure: the verse, the chorus, and the bridge. If you missed that video, I invite you to check it out now, before continuing on here. I put links into the description and cards of this video to get you back to the first segment. If you're ready to go further with me though, then great. Let's continue our exploration of song structure by discussing three important transitional sections. In essence, a transition is any song section which exists primarily or exclusively to provide a segue into or out of another section. And it's fitting to begin this discussion at a song's beginning with the intro. The intro, short of course for introduction, serves to prepare the listener for what is to come in the song. Now, an intro may not always be necessary or even preferable, especially if the effect you want to have on the listener is a sudden and immediate leap into the music at the start of your song. In that case, following the formula I outlined at the end of the previous video and jumping in directly with the first verse may work best. However, if you'd like some kind of warm-up for your tune, then an intro is in order. Depending on how much you'd like to warm up your listener, your intro can be as short as a bar, for example, maybe just a drummer counting in 1, 2, 3, 4, or your intro can be longer than 8 or even 16 bars. On this extreme end of the gamut, take for example some of The Cure's songs, such as Pictures of You. When I was young, they were one of my very favorite bands, and their rather infamous penchant for intros that could last as long as some other band's entire songs rubbed off on my early tunes as well. Now, that having been said, in recent years, intros have been trending shorter and shorter. This may actually be a side effect of a tendency toward shorter attention spans and a greater desire for instant gratification in the social media age, as well as the growing imperative among popular songwriters to get to the hook, or chorus, as fast as possible. But regardless of the cause, it can easily be observed that the average length of intros among contemporary chart toppers is between just 1 and 4 bars, regardless of genre. As for the composition of the intro, it is usually the same chord progression as another key section of the song, such as the verse or chorus. But sometimes it will use a unique progression that may then also be reprised during the bridge. A couple of examples which come to mind that use a unique motif during the intro and then reprise it in the bridge are Easy Lover by Philip Bailey and Phil Collins, or the much more recent Filthy by Justin Timberlake. Fleetwood Mac also frequently employed this technique. If the desired effect is to very gradually ease your listeners into your song, then it is even possible, though rather uncommon, to use a technique which mirrors the much more common fade out at a song's end. Using a fade in provides a very slow buildup of energy at the start of your song, almost like an on-ramp for what's to come. A good example of this is Chaka Khan's classic funky jam, Ain't Nobody. There are really quite a few different ways to warm up and prepare your listeners for your song, but what's most important to remember is that that is the main purpose of an intro. And if an intro's job is to bring people into your song, it is the outro's job to see them off. The role of the outro is actually a pretty critical one, since it needs to conclude your song in a satisfying way. To be honest, there have been some songs that I quite enjoyed upon first listen, all the way up to the end. But then for some reason, the songwriters made a weird choice about how to conclude the song, and it left me with a bad taste in my mouth. Usually this happens when songwriters try to do too much with the outro, instead of keeping it simple. One example that really sticks with me, since I think it's otherwise a great song by a brilliant songwriter, is Something's Missing by John Mayer. Instead of wrapping things up shortly after the final chorus, the song instead overstays its welcome with a nearly minute-long section of brand new material. Really, the end of your song is not a great time to introduce new ideas to the listener. Rather, it's time to wrap up the song and put a bow on it, so to speak. For this reason, the outro almost always consists of a repetition of a prior song section. For example, the chorus chord progression, or the song's opening lines, etc. How we choose to end our song depends a great deal on the kind of feeling we want to leave our listener with at the song's conclusion. Do we want a definitive feeling of closure? Or instead, to leave things feeling more open-ended? An outro can really do either, provide a feeling of finality or a feeling of continuation. Sometimes in the latter case, using that fade-out technique I already mentioned is the best choice. Another common approach is to have an outro section built around the chorus progression, but with vocal and instrumental ad-libs or some other variation on chorus motifs. Take, for example, a terrific song by one of my very favorite rock bands, Ain't It Fun by Paramore, which follows its last pair of choruses with an extended jam on the chorus progression that even brings in a gospel choir. On the other hand, if the effect you'd like to have is really one of an abrupt stop, your best choice may be to eschew an outro altogether and instead just stop the song at the end of the final chorus, which is not at all uncommon. One great example of punctuating your song with a quick stop at the final chorus is Taylor Swift's Blank Space. The third and final transitional section I want to discuss with you is definitely optional, but can be quite useful and powerful, and that is the pre-chorus. As the name implies, a pre-chorus effectively serves as a bridge of sorts between a verse and a chorus, creating a more natural and satisfying flow between what are usually distinct and quite different song sections. However, due to this bridging function, the pre-chorus can also sometimes be erroneously referred to as a bridge, which can create great confusion given that a bridge is its own unique song segment as described in the previous video. While a pre-chorus accomplishes a different task in your song than a bridge would, it still shares an important characteristic with your bridge, which is that it offers some dynamic variation, up or down, relative to the verse and chorus. That is, it usually provides some kind of breakdown or build-up between the preceding verse and the forthcoming chorus. Believe it or not, it is actually often a goal for the pre-chorus to do both simultaneously. That is, to lower the initial dynamic energy from the verse, which also allows the start of the chorus to hit harder, but also to create a build toward that chorus, or at least some kind of tension that is relieved when the chorus kicks in. I find that the recent hit High Hopes by one of my absolute favorite contemporary bands, Panic at the Disco, does this very well with its pre-chorus. Regarding length, it is rather common to write a pre-chorus that is half the length of the upcoming chorus. So for instance, if the chorus is 8 bars, the pre-chorus might be 4. The always elegant and on-point duo Hall & Oates did this in one of my favorite 80s classics, Private Eyes. That said, a longer pre-chorus isn't uncommon, especially if a more complicated or elaborate harmonic turnaround is needed to logically connect the verse to the chorus. Furthermore, using an irregular number of bars in the pre-chorus is also pretty common, and it can even be employed to surprise the listener, keep them guessing, or underline a particular musical or lyrical moment. A good example might be Childish Gambino's Grammy-winning hit Redbone, in which the first pre-chorus is 6 bars, and the second is an odd 7 bars. Now, it bears mentioning here that while it's easy to characterize pre-choruses as simple, brief, and even unnecessary interludes, the truth is that they can be very important pieces in a song's structure, and are even pretty difficult to write sometimes. This is because a pre-chorus needs to somehow logically connect to both the verse before it and the chorus after it, which may require a good deal of melodic and harmonic thought. As mentioned, it doesn't just need to connect verse and chorus. It needs to do so in a smooth way, while also offering some dynamic variation. So, taken all together, writing an effective pre-chorus is no small feat, but often quite worth the extra effort. Now, in the previous video, I offered you a basic song structure formula using just verse, chorus, and bridge segments to get you off and running with your own songwriting. And although, as mentioned, you can definitely write great songs using that template, let's revisit it now and toss our transitional segments into the mix to create an expanded song structure formula with even more interest to it. It might go intro, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, second verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, the chorus 2 times, and then an outro to take us out of the song. As you can see, I've highlighted the new transitional additions in black text, while those we discussed last time are in gray. This new expanded song structure maintains the logical and satisfying flow of the old basic structure, but also provides a nice segue into and out of the tune with an added intro and outro, as well as giving us the opportunity to create more fluid, interesting, and dynamic links between our verses and choruses via new pre-choruses. If you're ready to spice up your own song structures, then please give this template a try on your next tune. And if you are ready to dive even further into the song structure rabbit hole and see the rarest and most unusual song sections, weird and wonderful as they are, then please stay tuned for the next video in this series, where I'll introduce you to the remaining optional song sections and how you can use them to create even greater variety and interest in your songs. To make sure you are notified when the video is posted, please click subscribe. And if you got value from this part of the series, please feel free to click the thumbs up icon on this video to add it to your liked videos collection. Thanks for watching, fellow songwriter, and I'll see you soon in the next segment.